Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing my journey for my broken arm and the progress I've made. So about 4 months ago, just over 100 days ago, I broke my arm while arm wrestling a friend, and this was a complete break of the humerus called a spiral fracture, and I had to get surgery the next day, which resulted in me having a titanium plate put in and having ORIF surgery, which is open reduction internal fixation, essentially where they put plates and screws in your arm or any kind of where in the body to fix it in place. And yeah, so I had surgery the following day after the break, and after the surgery I found myself with full wrist drop, and this is a form of radial nerve palsy where I couldn't move my wrist or my fingers. And obviously this was very, very scary and upsetting. Not being able to move your wrist and fingers is incredibly scary, because there's no kind of way of knowing when you'll recover, when you'll get the nerve recovery back, and if you'll be able to move your hand again. And so I had to wear a splint for several months while I was recovering. And I did a lot of research in this time period. I was kind of hammering ChatGPT, trying to find out more and more and more about how to recover quickly from this injury, and the best things to do from the injury. And now I'm at about 4 months. It's been about just over 15 weeks. And as you can see, my wrist is moving and my fingers are moving as well, and my thumb. So previously it was literally like this, and then I could gradually move my wrist and my fingers, and so I'm very fortunate to be able to have an almost full recovery, and I'm sure it will get stronger over time. And obviously when you recover from wrist drop, it takes a long time for the nerves to regenerate. It's the slowest growing tissue in the human body, and it requires a number of processes for the actual nerves to recover. And then once that happens, when your nerves recover, you basically have a wrist or a hand that hasn't been active for several months, and so your strength completely dissipates. So I've been building up my strength over the past several months, and I've got to the point where I'm rapidly increasing my strength. I'm able to do wrist curls with 2 kg. Before I could barely do any weight, and I'm back in the gym. I'm starting to do curls to shoulders and chest, using much lighter weights than obviously pre-injury. So yeah, that's kind of the journey I've been on. So I'll just go over some of the challenges I faced, and hopefully you'll find some of the things in this video helpful in terms of whether you've had an injury like this yourself, and the steps I've taken to ensure that my wrist actually recovered in time. So it's vital that you take the right supplements, do the right physiotherapy, and create the right conditions so that your recovery can be as quick as possible. So the first thing I would say is the hardest part about this is not knowing how bad the radial nerve injury is. And this can vary from being a very mild radial nerve palsy, which means that the nerve has been stretched or it's been moved, which it's a very sensitive nerve, and so any movement or stretching can result in dysfunction of the radial nerve, which is responsible for extension in the fingers and hand and wrist. So this is likely what happened after the surgery. When the surgeon moved the radial nerve to get to the humerus, they had to move it from the fracture site. And my fracture was called a Holstein-Lewis type fracture. It's a spiral fracture. And these ones are literally next to where the radial nerve passes through. It's incredibly risky, I would say. If you have a spiral fracture about a third up from the elbow, where the radial nerve passes through and wraps around the humerus. And so if this is the case, the damage is potentially going to be more severe. But this can also vary based on the injury itself. During my research, obviously, there are a range of severities in terms of the radial nerve damage. It can range from like a mild radial nerve palsy to a more severe form of axonomesis, which is essentially where the nerve has been torn or severed in some way, or kind of more severely damaged, and so that the cells have died with the injury itself. And so I was looking into it, and in the first few months, there is literally no way of telling how severe the injury is, because if you have the same symptoms, if you have a full wrist drop and there's no signs of movement, then it could be ranging from anywhere from 3 months to over a year in some cases. And so make sure you understand the severity of the injury. If you can feel sensations, normal sensation in your hand, then that's a good sign that the no kind of tendons or nerves were severed severely. But I did have quite a tingling thumb and finger to start with. The sensation is almost like a tingling form similar to when you have pins and needles, that kind of sensation in the wrist and hand. And that lasted for several months. And I only managed to reduce that once my wrist function started coming back. So I saw the first signs of recovery roughly about 6 to 8 weeks ago, I would say, 2 months ago, where I had a little flicker of the wrist. I could move my wrist like this, so I could raise it slightly, even less than that. So I knew there was some sort of recovery going on, and the process had started. And then it gradually got stronger. I could move my wrist more, and then slowly but surely I was able to straighten my fingers over time, and finally I was able to straighten my thumb, and now I'm pretty much 95% recovered now. So I'm going to go over the things I did to ensure that I had a good recovery, and perhaps if you're in a similar situation you might find this useful. So the first thing I would say is get adequate sleep. Sleep is the most important thing when you're recovering from any injury, and there's plenty of evidence to back this up. Sleep is so important because most of the recovery process in terms of tissues and healing is done during sleep, and this is when it's most important. So make sure you get at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep every day, and you're going to bed earlier because the circadian rhythm is not trivial. So the later you go, the more sleep deprived you may feel, even though you're getting the same amount of sleep. The level of light in your environment affects your mood, affects your ability to have REM sleep, more deep sleep, and that important, deeper sleep is where the recovery happens. And so for the first 2 months, I was making sure I was going to bed early and getting plenty of sleep. And obviously this was difficult because of the pain in the actual arm. but try and prioritize this as much as possible. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing, obviously, that's really important is adequate nutrition. So making sure you get enough protein in your diet. I was aiming for about 100 grams of protein per day because I was doing a lot of weight training beforehand. And I was also taking creatine, which also boosts your muscle saturation and energy levels, and it's also good for your mental health. It is proven to improve memory and psychological function. And so I was maintaining my pre-injury levels of protein and creatine in order to maintain adequate proteins for the tissue recovery, because I had a big wound in my arm from where the surgery happened, and this was probably the most trauma I've actually ever had in my life. And so yeah, you need adequate protein, and definitely consider taking calcium supplements if you've got a broken bone, and that will help remineralize the bone and help with the bone remodeling process. The other thing I did was I took some supplements that I think really helped with nerve regeneration. The first one is vitamin B. Now, there's a range of evidence to back up the fact that vitamin B is essential for nerve regeneration. So I've got the vitamins here actually. So this is a methylated B vitamins and vitamin C, B complex. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so this has got vitamin C, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin B6, folic acid, B12, biotin, and B5. And so I'd recommend getting methylated vitamin B supplements, and I take them 1 to 2 times a day, and I feel like this has helped improve the speed of recovery. The other thing I also have taken is lion's mane supplements. So these are from a company called Time. These are really good. No one's sponsoring this video, of course. But this is based on my research, this supplement was the best one to take because it contains a lot of fruiting bodies. So it's important to differentiate what a good lion's mane supplement is from a more average one or a more ineffective one. This one has higher fruiting bodies, and it provides the necessary ingredients for nerve regeneration based on my research. So it provides 400 milligrams of fruiting bodies, and it also has triterpenes, which is important as well, based on my research. And now, don't take this, do your own research, of course, but based on what I found, these were the best ones with the highest concentrations of those compounds in, which were shown to be beneficial for nerve regeneration and nerve growth. The other one is supplements that help you have better sleep as well, like magnesium biglycinate I took every single day. And also to reduce inflammation, I was taking omega-3 and turmeric. So those are the kind of anti-inflammation supplements that helped with the wound recovery. The nerve recovery was the lion's mane and the B vitamins. So those are the main supplements I took, which really helped speed up the recovery process. I also looked into peptides during this time. Now, peptides are chains of amino acids that make up the building blocks of tissues, and basically what this means is the human body needs various amino acids for tissue, for muscle, ligaments, cartilage, and other tissues in the body. And so peptides can be in a range of configurations, and recently there's been one peptide which has been known to improve tissue growth and recovery, and that is BPC 157. So I did a lot of research into BPC 157 and decided that there was enough evidence to suggest that it could be beneficial for wound recovery and wound healing and speeding up that process. And so I did a month cycle of BPC 157. Now, make sure you do a lot of research before taking something like this, as there can be issues with quality and production, manufacturers sourcing, so be very, very careful when you're doing the research into this. I may cover this in a future video if you're interested, and if you have any questions relating to this, feel free to ask me. Next, I'm going to talk about the physical therapy that I did for the recovery process. So initially, I live in the UK, so we have physio as part of the NHS, and so initially they give you a series of exercises that you can complete to maintain mobility, to train the nerves, or to help with the nerve healing and strength as well. And so the thing that really helped with wrist drop and the radial nerve improvement was doing finger exercises where you almost do phantom lifts. So you lift your fingers like so, and you basically you lift them up while you're thinking about lifting the finger, and you can do this several times a day, and that will maintain flexibility. And you can also do that for the wrist like this, and that really helps with maintaining the mind-nerve connection. So when you do recover, you still have that connection, and that hasn't been cut off. And this is really important because studies have shown that this is also the case when you're doing mirror training, when you're using your other arm in the mirror, but thinking about moving your injured arm as well, your injured hand in the mirror, and that stimulates the mind-nerve connection. I did look into red light therapy, and I think there is enough evidence to suggest that red light therapy could be beneficial for wound recovery, but I haven't tried it, so let me know if you've tried red light therapy and whether that helped with your recovery at all. I also have been using resistance bands to train the wrist once my wrist came back, and initially I could barely lift anything, and now I'm able to use resistance bands, use light weights, and consistently exercise my wrist and fingers. And also grip strength training is really good. You can get grip strengtheners on Amazon for like less than £5. So I would say that's very helpful if you want to improve your grip strength, which will be severely weakened after an injury, which results in wrist drop. So if you're going through this right now, you're probably feeling panicked, you're probably feeling upset, uncertain, and scared, quite frankly. So I would just say that I initially had no idea whether I would recover. I was looking into all sorts of online sources, Reddit, papers, research papers, YouTube videos, and I couldn't find that much accurate information out there, but generally speaking, the literature tended towards recovery at around the 4-month period. I recovered well within that time period, so it was correct in my case. And then I also found other sources that suggested it would take much longer, up to a year, depending on the severity of the nerve damage. You can only do what you can, so make sure you're maximizing your recovery by implementing all these steps in nutrition, sleep, exercises, and just keeping a positive mindset, because it's easy to get lost, to get confused, and go into a negative spiral when these things happen. But there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, when you have something like this, all you can do is try your best, and hopefully you'll get back on track and the recovery will take place, and oftentimes it's quicker than you expect. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and if you want me to discuss anything in more detail, I'm happy to do so. I might make a more in-depth video about recovery and what I did. But in general, stay strong. You will recover, you will get through this. It's just a matter of time, and I'm on track to getting back to my original strength. I was doing very heavy lifting, very heavy weight training, weighted dips, weighted pull-ups. I'm back in the gym now, and I'm starting to get back on track in terms of recovery, and I have to ease into it now. I can't rush into it, because there's always that chance of re-injury when it comes to a bone break. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you for watching.